never really wanted to play football as a career. I had a big dream of playing for Ohio State. Checked that off the list, and I was very much ready. I was ready when I was done with high school to be done with football, to be honest. So I had a finance degree, and I was pretty much dead set on not ever having a job. I just, for whatever reason, I don't know if that was in my DNA, the entrepreneurial bug or whatever it was, but I knew from high school, I was always trying to start stuff and tinkering with ways to basically buy myself freedom is what I'm looking for at the end of the day. The quick pivot became, okay, how do we do this at a higher level where we can charge more to get ourselves off the ground? And having pretty much no experience in enterprise sales, it was really difficult to sell to enterprise level clients. Like, if you're a small business, you should be niched down as much as you possibly can, like to the niche of the niche of the niche, and you should be reaching out just to those people. Taking a job's not the worst thing in the world. It sometimes provides you the capital and the time you need to go build something. So don't be as stubborn as I was.
Not to mention the skill set. You learn from a lot of different people.
So. Yeah, 100%.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to SALESBIZ. I appreciate you all taking the time. Before we kick it off, folks, once again, go hit that subscribe button. Like this specific episode if you find value out of it, and drops us some comments down below. Today, my guest is a professional out of Texas. He is currently the founder of Nadabot, which is a technology that helps streamline lead generation, amongst other things, but I will let him talk about it. Super impressed with this gentleman's not just career, but overall athletic contributions and his overall drive. And I'm super excited to talk to him, Mr. Clay Raterman. Clay, welcome, brother.
Yo, what's going on? Glad to be here.
By the way,
what was that?
Did I butcher your name, by the way?
No, did you say Raterman?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
A lot of people say, yeah, it's like, like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Ant-Man, we're part of the group here.
You got the Raterman.
Yeah, I'm just the rat.
Appreciate you taking the time, brother. Super impressed by your background, man. So that's why I reached out. I want to get to know, first off, let's talk about Nadabot in a second, but let's take it a step back. Ohio State, professional career. Tell us how it all got started.
Oh, man. Yeah. So the Ohio State stuff. So I was a walk-on for everybody that is listening. I was a walk-on football player there. I played safety, had some cool accomplishments, but it did not always start that way. I was actually, let me think back. So I played football pretty much my whole life growing up. But once I got to high school, I started to realize, like, oh shit, like am I allowed to cuss on this, by the way?
Yeah, I bleep it.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Okay, nice. Okay, cool. So, so anyway, I get to high school. I'm like, man, I am not as big as some of the other people here. I was a pretty skinny kid. Naturally, I was, decently athletic, but definitely a lot, I guess, undersized compared to a lot of people. And so I had to work. I was, at a pretty big high school, worked extremely hard to, kind of climb the ranks in that arena, and finally got to start my senior year, which, as you probably, if you guys know anything about football, usually you get recruited if you're like a junior or a sophomore and you're like some star player. So I was not recruited. I did really well my senior year. I played corner and basically decided that, college football probably wasn't going to be for me. It was never really on the radar. It wasn't something that I was like, necessarily trying to do. I wanted to go to Ohio State specifically. Grew up a Buckeye. I was, always watching the games and stuff. And so I got there my freshman year, and I just felt weird not being in a sport after so long playing at, being in athletics my life. And so, yeah, it was freshman year, and I was at like the Ohio State football games, and I just could not kick the feeling of like, why am I sitting in the stands? Like, what am I doing? Like, I'm doing something wrong. Like, something is off. I feel weird watching the sport. And I wasn't enjoying it. Like, I was like, at my college, and I just was like having a terrible time. I was like, I feel like I could be down there. And obviously no one believes you. So like, I wasn't going around telling people like, yeah, I think I could be playing and all this stuff. And so the only person that really like kind of believed in me and ushered me in that direction was my grandpa. And he was like a big part of kind of my athletic career growing up. He was, always first one in the stands type of guy. And so he ended up getting cancer actually around that period of my freshman year in college. And so he actually went into hospice care. And for those of you guys who don't know, Ohio State won the national championship in 2014. So that was my freshman year of college. And so he lived like right till the end of that. They won the national championship. And he basically was in his last week of hospice care. And I promised him that I was going to walk on the football team there. I didn't tell anybody else. I just told my grandpa. And he actually ended up passing away probably, I don't even remember now, maybe like a week or two after that. And so I basically, being a man of my word, was like, oh shit, now I got to really figure out how to walk on. My family didn't really know, nobody knew, but I'd been training for, I never really stopped training after high school. It was just kind of part of my life at that point. So man, I tried like a ridiculous amount of stuff to get on the team. Like I did all these like Ohio State's fastest student races, and I would show up to these tryouts and I would cold email all these people and cold call all these people and send videos, all these. I was just trying to figure out like, when is there even a tryout? Like, when is it? How does it work? What's the process? There's no information on that type of stuff pretty much anywhere on the internet. And so I finally got an email back from a guy that was passed along from another email that I had sent. And it basically said, hey, there's a tryout in the fall. Like, here's the date. Like, that's all he was going to say to me. He never replied after that. He just sent me the date of the tryout. And I was like, yes, like I got something. I'm on the right path. I know there's a date. So that like gave me a ton of confidence, because I was like, I'm actually working towards something now. And so I took a job at Rogue Fitness, which is like just a big weight manufacturing company in Columbus, so that I could just work out in their facility all summer. And I had this really weird situation happen where I actually was applying to, so my brother and I got accepted to be on the TV show American Ninja Warrior. And this weird thing happened where we were flying out to film in LA for Ninja Warrior the day of my tryout. So the chances of that happening are obviously ridiculous. First of all, the chances of us even getting on Ninja Warrior, plus them having a tryout date and then them just landing on the same day, was wild. So I canceled the flight secretly, like from the producers, booked a red eye for that night, and then went to the tryout. And then that specific tryout, I actually did not make the team. So I did really well in all the drills. I did pretty much everything I could do. I've been training for like a year and a half at that point. Did not make the team, was super disappointed, pretty discouraged. Went on to Ninja Warrior, did well for a little bit, and then we lost. So didn't win on Ninja Warrior either. So I came home after that weekend and I was pretty destroyed from like just all the, getting slapped in the face by life. So I honestly, in my head at that point, was like trying to figure out, if there was even another chance. I'm a sophomore in college at this point. It's kind of creeping towards the end of, me even being able to walk on. And so another, 6 months goes by and somebody texted me and they said, hey, there's another tryout. Like they tweeted it, which is wild. The Ohio State football team tweeted that they were having an open tryout. So it was that day I just left class, ran to the facility, and once again had a tough tryout where there's basically one guy who decides if you make it or not. And if that guy doesn't like you for whatever reason, you're not going to make it. And so I did really well in all the drills again. And that guy, for whatever reason, just didn't really like me. And, there's literally nothing else to it other than that. Like, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But as I was walking off the field, one of the safety coaches had been watching me throughout the tryout. And so he looked at my times and he was like, oh, shoot, like I'm actually going to keep you around, for some extra drills after this. So he kept me afterwards and I made the team at that point. And then lo and behold, a year or two later, we're Big Ten champions and, had an awesome little career playing for the Buckeyes.
Awesome, man. Well, first off, condolences to your grandpa. My grandfather I was named after, he's a huge influence in my life. So the fact that you followed through with your promise. And
oh, dude, you gotta. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But yeah, you absolutely gotta.
Yeah. So that tenacity and that level of, keeping your word and trust, that's definitely business oriented. So kudos to you, my man. You had like a little Rudy Friday Night Lights kind of all American story.
A
I
little
love
bit. I mean, honestly, it's just hard to do. It's not like, there's no plan on how to walk on or how to make it in that sense. And by the way, once you make the team, it's not like, oh, you made the team, you're going to be a starter. Like, no, you got to work your way up. Like, it is, every step is a grind. And yeah, there's not very many people that make it through the gauntlet, if you will.
every drop of sweat is earned. Absolutely. And you didn't play football in high school?
No, I did play football in high school.
Okay,
I
you did.
played,
I was like, because I
yeah,
was like, without that experience to get it onto the
oh
Buckeye.
no, I would. There's no chance. No, I was actually really good in high school my senior year, but in
Okay.
order to get recruited for anything, like I had some looks and some offers to like lower D2 schools and things like that. Because once you're a senior and you're getting looked at, most of these scholarships have already been handed out for those years.
Yeah, I'd imagine you guys are very competitive. Awesome, man. So you played for a little bit. Obviously, NFL was in the cards. Tell me a little bit about where the professional side took. Where did reality kick in?
Yeah, so I actually, to be completely honest, I didn't even do my pro day. It never was the NFL. I never really wanted to play football as a career. I had a big dream of playing for Ohio State. Check that off the list, and I was very much ready. I was ready when I was done with high school to be done with football, to be honest. I love the sport and I love the game, but I do not like practicing. It was just not that fun to me. I love playing the game. But for whatever reason, practicing, you don't play the game that much. And it's not as fun as some other sports in terms of their practice. At least that was my experience in my position. But yeah, so once I was done at Ohio State, so I had a finance degree and I was pretty much dead set on not ever having a job. I just, for whatever reason, I don't know if that was in my DNA, the entrepreneurial bug or whatever it was, but I knew from high school, I was always trying to start stuff and tinkering with ways to basically buy myself freedom is what I'm looking for at the end of the day. And so I knew immediately after I graduated, I was like, okay, how can I not get a job? Like, what's the plan here? And so I started a software company for dietitians that basically helped them, make automated diet plans for their clients. And so that didn't work super well. The software itself worked, but the strategy around getting clients and actually making money on it did not work so well. So
Tell me why though. What was specifically the failures around that? Because obviously we learn from our failures, right? And
yeah,
clearly you've pivoted. So what do you feel like? What was the missing piece in that model?
yeah. So to be honest, I think the biggest thing that I didn't understand back then was getting attention. So driving leads, especially for something that's low ticket. So something that, our software costs, like, I think it was $30 a month. Um, it's very difficult, especially when you have no money and you're completely bootstrapped and you're just out of college. Like, I literally had no money. All I had was the software. I mean, you're eating based on a monthly payment of $30. And so the quick pivot became, okay, how do we do this at a higher level where we can charge more to get ourselves off the ground? And having pretty much no experience in enterprise sales, it was really difficult to sell to enterprise level clients, especially universities. And so we got close a couple of times. We actually did get a few hospitals and some people on board, but not enough to keep the lights on necessarily.
Got it. Would you feel like because you didn't really harness a specific target market at the time, or was it trying to figure out what your ideal customer was, or was it more around this product maybe wasn't mid-market or enterprise ready?
Um, oh man, it's just
I'm
there's
sorry,
so
man. If
there,
this is a this is a sensitive topic.
no, it's not sensitive at all. Yeah, no, I could care less. I
I just
failed.
love learning from failures.
No,
We
no, no.
talk
I
about
fail
success all the
all
time.
the time. I mean, I've
Right
literally
there
have
with you,
failed
brother.
millions of times at everything. So no, I'm the same way. No, but it's really hard to pinpoint the failure because there were so many things done wrong that it's really hard to say, okay, well, this was the nail in the coffin. I mean, we pretty much, across the board of what you just said was probably an issue in all of those areas.
Right.
I mean, we didn't have, like, our target market initially was kind of like fitness influencer type people that wanted to be able to make diet plans very quickly for
Right.
clients. And then, how we were reaching them was through direct messaging, which we tried ourselves at first, and then we tried to have a VA do it, and then we tried to have some other routes. And we don't have any money for marketing, so the only way you can make a sale is through direct outreach at that point. And when you're doing direct outreach to get $30, if it's a low ticket product, again, that's a very poor use of time. In which case you can't really bucket your time to then go out and make the product better. And it's just a vicious cycle. If you're selling something low ticket and you don't have a way to generate demand for it, and you don't even really know who the demand is coming from, you're going to be in a pretty bad situation pretty quickly.
I hear you, man. And I learned the hard way too myself. I had two software companies that I started that immediately fell within 2 years because I feel like one, I am not a technical founder. And that was a huge component of putting all the efforts on, what if this is might go this way, might go that way. I didn't understand I feel like when you don't speak the language, the primary language of the organization, that was my biggest drawback. It wasn't about the clients. It wasn't about the business model. It was more of me not being in the core of the actual product itself. And
That's
at any
tough.
point in time, I could just walk up and fiddle with it somehow and fix it. That was not my strength. And from what I've heard, you don't really need to be that. But I guess the way my personality is wired, I should be that guy basically, or from what I was told. So
Yeah, no, I feel you, because I was the same way. And so it became this perpetual thing of, okay, I know I'm not the technical person. And so I tried to learn to be that. And that takes a lot of time and skill and energy and effort. And so I was developing the whole front end of things, and I was doing this without knowing how to do it. So I'm trying to learn how to code. I'm learning the whole front end. And so by doing that, I learned a lot of really valuable skills that became useful later on. But yeah, I mean, in that initial stage, it's like, if you only have so much time in a day, and if your money is coming from these low ticket sources, and the only source that you're doing is direct outreach for, which is the least leveraged activity you could do, then yeah, you're going to be like in just a spot where you're trying to time bucket between, okay, I'm trying to be a technical founder, which I'm not, and now I'm also trying to sell it in a way that's very unsustainable.
yeah, I hear you. Did you folks ever thought about raising money, maybe going to like a VC?
Um, I guess not really, because we didn't have enough conviction in what we were doing. It was more like me and my friends spun up the project quickly to try to make money, and it didn't work. And so the conviction in what we were doing wasn't there. And I think that's a really big part of it too. Like I said, there's a million missing components to why it didn't work. So it's sometimes hard to analyze failures when you're so far off that there's a lot of, it's not like we couldn't do one thing right. There was a, significant portion of stuff. But
Right.
yeah, no, I think the conviction wasn't there. So I'm never going to try to sell something I'm not convicted in.
Love it. Well, hey man, kudos to you. I mean, the win, in my opinion, is the fact that you went from idea to actual execution and even acquired customers and had a software as a portion of it. So whatever the failure may be, I think that journey alone, you just mentioned it, you got a lot of great lessons out of that. So that is, in my opinion, the school of that's the
Yeah,
school that we should all be going to. I'd
it
rather take
is.
10K and try to start my own business and fail horribly, but learn a
Yeah.
ton from it, as opposed to uh, going to get an MBA or something like that, where you have those practices anyway, but it's not real life.
Yeah.
You're kind of paying to role play as opposed to actually dealing with legal, dealing with accounting, marketing, all that
It's
stuff.
so different. I was going to ask you that. So like when because you said you had a couple that botched as well. When you're going through that, do you think during it that you're like, wow, like I'm gonna, I'm learning a lot from this? Or is it just way down the line where you look back and you're like, oh, these skills are applicable to, what I'm doing now? Because at least from my perspective, when I was going through it, I wasn't necessarily thinking along the way that, wow, I'm learning a lot. But what I definitely realized was during it, I was like, oh, this actually isn't that hard. Like it didn't take me as long as I projected it might. So in my head, I would have these thoughts of like, if I wanted to spin up another business pretty quickly, I could. But then actually, it does take a lot longer. So it's this weird like back and forth. But did you have that knowledge when you're going through it, or was it like you looked back later on and realized that you learned a lot?
A little bit of both, man. But honestly, for me in the moment, it was more of, oh, I didn't know that. Oh, wow, you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to reach out to, you're supposed to file this LLC, or you're supposed to reach out to
Yeah.
that legal guy. Why do we need a business license? Why Delaware versus California? It's all these little things. And now looking back at it, I think my biggest takeaway was stop doing everything, stop doing so much, because there is a legal Zoom, there is a Fiverr, there is an
Yeah.
Upwork, there is a, you don't have to be the product guy and the accounting guy and the marketing guy. And on top of that, be the sales guy, which is my strong suit.
Yeah.
So
But that's your opinion from being successful now, though, looking back, because when you did first start, no one's wanting to work with you. No one wants to work with you. So that's what like that there's a disconnect because like once people are successful, they're like, oh, I have money. I can outsource this. I don't have to be good at this. I can
right.
convince this really good tech person to come work for me because they can see your track record. But I remember specifically being like in my dad's basement and being like, I get that you're supposed to outsource stuff, but no one's going to do this for me. Like I have to do this. No one else is going to do it for me.
Unfortunately, too, the people that I convinced to do it for me were not skilled enough to do it and
Bingo.
started kind of learning on their own, which was good. That's kind of like part of the journey, but there's only one person kind of held accountable to that, which is the guy in the mirror,
Yeah,
basically. So
exactly.
yeah, it was a good lesson. I did also learn that I'm really not good at managing people either. I feel like I'm one of those 1099 guys. Uh,
Yeah.
so you think you're this alpha that has everything figured out and solves every problem, but then you look at it, it's like, nah, you're more of a sigma, dude. You want to
Yeah.
be that
Yeah.
guy that still be friends with everyone, but at the same time get stuff done. And that's where I
It's,
kind of learned to distribute
yeah.
more than lead. I guess if that makes us, you got to
Yeah.
follow to lead in a way. That's what I really learned for it. You don't have to be such a boss. You kind of have to be the Achilles in the war with your team, as opposed to being the Agamemnon that's telling people to
Yes.
go and while sitting back in his seat.
Well, you have to care about them, right? Like I think most of it, like when I think about like accountability and stuff, like obviously if you're the one that's leading the ship there, you have to be able to keep people accountable, but nobody's accountable unless you're accountable first. And so if people take after like what you're doing. So if you're and you're probably similar to me in a way where you like to do a lot of different stuff, us salespeople, like we have a lot of interests. And so managing a lot of people becomes difficult because in order to manage someone well, they have to see that you're accountable, which obviously we can be accountable, but do a bunch of different stuff. But a really good manager cares a lot about their people. And then that's why the people work back, hard for them. And so giving that time, I feel like to your employees and like making sure that you're kind of holding their hand. That's something that people like me and you probably don't like doing at all. Like it's like in our heads, it's like, wow, this is a huge waste of time. Like I could be doing a million different things right now that I'd rather be doing. But that good manager quality is someone who can kind of sit there and understand that no, me sitting here and having a 15-minute meeting where we don't talk about anything productive is actually productive for those types of people.
Yeah, you kind of think, why? How the hell how did I let this happen? But at the same time, I kind of take a step back. I probably suck on some things too that I sometimes try to do. Like what you just mentioned, trying different things. Right now, I'm doing gardening, but my tomatoes are coming in, but everything else probably died. So
Yeah.
yeah, I got to do things better in a way. But no, I hear you. For me, it's just more of I don't want. It's kind of like a treat the way you want to be treated in a way. If I don't like being told specifically what to do by others, but at the same time, me telling
Mhm.
others what to do kind of is contradictory to that. So,
So it makes you feel weird when you do it.
right. So
You're
it's
like,
like, how do I meet halfway? Oh, Fiverr.com. Oh,
yeah.
Upwork. It's, finding that specific target person that you absolutely need just for that specific project. And then, or building a long-term relationship, but, not necessarily having them report directly to me all the time and having specifically, having their livelihood in my hands. Like, I'm not sure
Yeah.
if I
It's a
were
lot of
to,
responsibility.
lay someone off. But back to you, man. I really want to talk a little bit more about this because I see that Nadabot has employees. I see that you've kind of built something. So let's get into that.
They're 1099s, my man. But yes, we do have like a very team culture. It very much
Love it.
it's like, okay, so the way I run that, and just for everyone listening, because I don't know how much research you've done, or obviously the people have probably no idea what Notabot is, but our company, what we do is we help businesses deploy what we like to call teams of storytellers. So if you guys are in the sales world, you guys probably know there's droves of companies that hire these SDRs. You could call it BDC, like business development consultant, sales development representative, outbound sales rep, someone who's going out and generating leads for your company. We just happen to call them storytellers because we're doing something that's different than what those people are doing. And we're doing it in a way where you don't necessarily have to salary them or pay them a part-time, gig or anything. And so what we do is we help businesses deploy their own team of storytellers, and the storytellers go out and they send hyper-personalized one-to-one video messages. And that's basically the only form of outreach that they do. And so by doing that, they're hyper focused. They have the one thing that they're supposed to do every single day, and they get paid, actually, at least the way I pay mine is per video sent, as well as per booking, as well as, if the ones that do well, we give them commission on the deals. So it becomes this opportunity for, especially in an online remote world, for people to have online remote work where they can work really whenever they want, kind of however they want, as long as they're good at what they're doing and they're connecting authentically with people. We'll pay them for that because it's a huge leverage activity for us.
Got it. So I use a service called Vidyard,
Yeah.
where I record my own video. Like, hey, Jane Smith, love
Good.
what you're doing. Think our product would be a fit. And I'll be honest, like, I only do that for a specific,
Exactly.
like, the senior product manager of this specific department, because everything else, I feel like I'll just be recording videos all day. I don't know. So is that what you folks are doing? Kind of like, hey, John, go ahead and find this lead, create a video saying, talking a little bit about the value prop, and then try to schedule a meeting through Calendly or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. Before I dive in, so let me ask you, why do you do that? Why, for those those really high priority people, why do you create a personal video message for them?
So part of my strategy when it comes to hunting, specifically on the enterprise side, is I'll also first talk to the salespeople. I'll try to figure out, hey, John, hey, Smith, etc. What are you guys doing for this specific problem? And once I gather enough intel, I'll go to their decision maker. I'll go to the person that I know is a decision maker. Hey, Jane, from what I heard from John, Randy, etc., is that you guys, this is your current process. What if I did this for you? Is that something you bring value? And if not, if so, let's schedule a call. And I feel like that's one, a little bit more personable.
Yeah.
Two, that personability obviously costs time, and the person listening to the message that's directly made for them, it kind of gets that little, handwritten note, warm, fuzzy, 2021 type of feeling. And three, it's reusable. So you could create a video and you could add another portion of the video and kind of redistribute to other people in the organization. So,
and so when you're reaching out to those higher up VPs, are you doing that? Are you sending them that personal video because they're getting hit up all day long, and you need something that's going to cut through the noise? Or what's kind of the main core reason of why you would send that to someone who's a VP and not somebody who's somebody maybe lower down?
It doesn't have to be VP. It could be like a regular product manager.
Right. It's just someone you want to get in touch with,
exactly.
Genuinely.
That's just kind of like knowing your audience and knowing your ideal customer. It's, in my business, product managers and technical founders are usually the best way to go. But sometimes for a specific product, there's a business operations, maybe even a sales leader, could do could talk about what I need. It all depends on who I've heard through the grapevines. That's why I try to do as much research as possible
Yeah.
prior to getting there. So when they hear the video, it's like, oh wow, he has been talking to other people. He's done his homework. And then from there I'll know exactly. Because if they told me they're already using a competitor that's in a long contract or something like that, I wouldn't even bother doing that whole video or anything.
100%.
So, but put it
Well,
in
so that decision-making process, like where the guy is watching your video, he's getting, how many other messages a day? Probably
tons
of LinkedIn bots and all this stuff. And so the reason you're making a personal video for him is because you're trying to put more energy and effort in than the other sea of people that are reaching out to that person, so that you can eventually have a conversation and hopefully make a connection, maybe do business down the line, so on and so forth. And so that's the thesis of what our company does. We just we put more energy and effort into the very base level of business, which is connecting with other people. So we're willing to put more energy and effort into that very first connecting with other people than anyone else is willing to do. So there's tons of bots and automations where you can reach thousands of people each day. But guess how many of those people are going to respond back to you? A very, very small percentage.
Yep.
And so we think about things differently. If we have a lead list, right, we curate, we'll pay for the lead list. We'll curate a very strong target market that's, specifically for us. And, maybe there's 1,000 people on that lead list. If we send an automated message to 1,000 of these people, we just burned a list of 1,000 of our best possible people. And that's the lowest leverage, lowest energy form of outreach that we could have done. And that's honestly just really stupid, especially if you're a small business, because there's not, like, if you're a small business, you should be niched down as much as you possibly can, like to the niche of the niche of the niche, and you should be reaching out just to those people. Maybe there's 10,000 of them that are perfect possible clients. You don't want to be burning that list. So for us, we're doing what you just said. You don't want to be sitting there making videos all day long as a business owner. You have a lot of other stuff to do. I personally, as a business owner, like yourself, still make videos because we know how valuable it is in a certain regard. And so when we really need to get a hold of someone, what do? We make a personal video for them, and we make it as well done as we possibly can. And obviously there's varying degrees of the videos and how much energy and effort you're putting into it. Maybe for a sales rep, it's a little bit less than for a VP. But the principle is the same. You're trying to be above the sea of all these people that are throwing noise at this person. You're trying to cut through that and be the person that they're like, wow, this person really gave me a lot of energy and effort. I'm going to reciprocate that back to them. And so the thesis of what we do is, instead of having a team of these SDRs that are sending BS copy and paste messages for a half hour and then sitting there twiddling their thumbs for 7 hours a day, they're paid on their work. They're paid per video sent. And we take them through an entire training on, how do you be a good storyteller? What actually allows you to connect with other people authentically? Like, what about that person do you relate to? Like, what could actually get you guys to connect before they ever try to go on and pitch them on, some sale or idea? And so by sending that out, that's what I like to call doing the real work. And that's the kind of work that actually compounds over time. So if you're doing the automated messages and everyone's like, imagine if you could send 500 a day, or you had a VA that sent 1,000 a day, what kind of ROI could you get from that? That work doesn't really compound, because it's not like someone's going to look back in 3 weeks and say, wow, this automated message from this random person, I really want to schedule a call with them. That message is gone. It's in the ether and it's out of there. If you make a personal video for someone that's really well done, there is a chance that in 2 weeks, if you follow up on that, they could watch that video and still want to talk to you from that. So that type of work compounds over time. We're willing to pay a monetary value for that video. And thus, this is what we teach businesses to do: grow their little team of storytellers that are sending these hyper-personal videos so that they can have work that's compounding and ultimately build a predictable source of lead flow. And so this isn't some magic wand. It's not like, Facebook ads where you can click a button and get lucky and have 500 leads roll through. It is, it's predictable. It's a predictable fashion because you're doing outreach with good people. You can track how many videos you're sending out. What's the typical response rate to that? They're all going through the same training when you bring them in. And it's a process that you can sustainably grow.
Got it. So you not only provide the SDR team for them, but you actually train their SDRs to use the technology, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, so it depends on the client. Like if there's like an enterprise level client or something, we'll train their team of SDRs to start doing this. A lot of those, enterprise type people, they're already on salary. We're not going to convince them to be like, pay these people per video. But really, our sweet spot is small business owners who are trying to figure out how to do direct outreach as a strategy. So if someone has a high ticket offer, direct outreach should be a part of your strategy. And we just think this is the best possible way to do it. And so, yeah, we really fall in that niche of like small business owners that do need a direct outreach strategy. So if they have a high ticket offer, like I said, but we will give them the entire training. So they actually, when a client signs up with us, they log into our site and they click a button and they can duplicate the entire infrastructure of what we use for our storytellers. So we build everything inside of Notion, which is really nice because it's basically free for everyone else to use. But when they duplicate everything, it goes into their system. So all the templates, assets, databases, resources, everything they need will just get duplicated into their system. They can tailor it towards their company, and then they will have internally the trainings to put their storytellers through. And so we also give them hiring funnels and everything else they need to actually hire their own team. So we don't actually necessarily place the storytellers for them because we want it to be sustainable for them long term.
Got it. Let me ask you something. With respect to content driven specifically for a lead, as opposed to global content of making a video high end and then trying to get as much views, what type of correlation are you seeing? Are you seeing that one is more successful than the other because there's so much out there or do you still feel like that's still an effective model of just making content and then have people come to you?
Both. You should be doing both. You should have a strategy around doing both. I think it depends with broad content marketing. Like if you're running paid ads and you're really good at it and you're generating leads, like if you're paying, I mean, here's the question. If you're paying less money, like if you pay, I don't know, maybe it's $50 a lead or $200 a lead and you sell them, every 10 leads, you sell one for $5,000 and it's ROI positive from your ad campaign, definitely keep doing that and increase it as much as possible. The problem is a lot of people, especially small business owners, they end up paying an agency to come run the ads for them. They don't get results from it. They have not even the slightest clue on how to do paid advertising. And so then they're left with, okay, what's the other form of advertising? It's direct outreach. And then they try to go get a VA. That doesn't really work very well. Or they try to do automations and it becomes them doing all these automations. It's really hard to train a team to go and set up all their own automations and stuff. And so it's just really complicated. And we found, hey, this actually works better. Send them a really well done personal video. We'll pay you for that work. We don't have to convince people to work on commission only. And yeah, so I think to answer your question, sorry to go off on a tangent, but basically both is the best strategy. And which one works better is just whichever one you end up getting better at. I think lead generation through storytellers and like sending personal videos is definitely going to be slower. You're doing much less volume and you can't reach as many people. So it's not as much of a levered activity as like you hit a home run with Facebook ads. I just think the chance of you hitting a home run with Facebook ads is significantly lower right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about, not everyone wants to be in front of a camera, right?
Yeah.
What about you, Clay? How did you adopt the confidence? I mean, you're a football player, you got on the team, you started a company. What advice do you, I guess it's a two-part question. One, how do you break through that, in terms of being in front of a camera, really going outside of your box and trying to pitch someone? But specifically, how do you inspire your 1099 or your employees or your clients, especially to, hey, get in front of that camera and start producing content ASAP. This is 2021.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I don't know if I'm confident in areas that I'm competent in, if that makes sense. I'm not confident in areas that I'm not competent in. And video was definitely not one of those. I still don't like getting on camera sometimes. To be quite honest, it's just doing the reps. Like the more you start to make them, the less you start to care about what people think, which I think is the main thing. You just care
There
too much
you
about
go.
what people
That's
think.
what I wanted to hear.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like the more you do it, the less you stop caring what people think. And honestly, that's probably out of everything. I try to tell my team this. I'm like, look, this is a skill. Like if you get good at talking to people and pitching them on things or like connecting with individuals without trying to necessarily sell them something immediately, your relationships and like just the weird stuff that can happen in your life from these connections is incredible. Like the more you put yourself out into the universe, the more things can come back to you. And so, yeah, I think to break through, you really have to focus on number one, putting in the reps, and number two, just not giving a shit about what people think about you, because everyone's going to have an opinion. The good thing about personal videos is it's going to one person and you're trying to get them to watch it. So, you know, they're going to see it. It's a little bit tougher to convince people to do like their own content. That would be a lot more difficult. But because these people kind of feel safe, they know they're in a community of people on my team that everyone's doing this. It's trust me, it's still a struggle. Like there's definitely days people don't want to do it. There's definitely days people don't do it. You know, sometimes people are like, oh, I just, you know, I don't look good today, or I don't feel good today, or, you know, you have to put something, you got to get yourself psyched up to be able to do it. There's much more friction in doing video than there is with doing anything else, but it's worth it because that friction is what creates the gap between other people not wanting to do it and you being able to break through the noise.
Yep.
That makes sense.
No, it does, man. And once again, you nailed it. The whole stop caring what the other person thinks. I think it all comes back to rejection. You know, what is that person specifically, not only what they think, what are they going to think bad of me that's going to potentially put my ego down? And one mentor that pretty much changed my life told me, okay, well, you're afraid of rejection. Great. So let's talk about the person you just talked to. Let's pull him up. We pulled up his picture. It's like, what do you think he breathes? Oxygen, clear as you breathe oxygen too, right? It's like, what do you think he bleeds? Like blood. Okay, so that guy's pretty much like you, right? So tell me something, Mike. Why is that guy better than you?
Yeah.
And then why do you think you're better than him? And then
That's
it kind of blew my mind. It
bad.
seems like stop putting that person on the other line, or that beautiful gal you wanted to talk to at the bar, or you know, maybe your elder sibling. You kind of start putting into perspective, we're all kind of the same. We're at different skill sets, we provide different values, but end of day, we're all the same humans. None of us are perfect. So life is short, give it a shot. And that blew me away. At that point, cold calling didn't matter. Talking to anything beautiful didn't matter. It was more of, hey, life is short, let's just live it up. So you nailed it right there, man. That's why I wanted to elaborate on it.
Well, no, I totally agree. I think that point is, I mean, that single epiphany, like when you have that in your life, changes a lot of stuff. And everyone hears that all the time. Like, but it takes a moment like that where somebody, like, where it really drives it home for you. We're like, wow, I'm going to be dead in like probably maybe in a month, maybe in 100 or 75 years, whatever it is. No one's going to care. Like it literally at this point in time, there's going to be a new wave of humans. There's going to be a new wave of whatever's going on. And no one's going to care about this moment and this time. That I better just have fun and experience everything I can to the fullest. And caring too much about what other people think inhibits people from living their life the way they actually want to live it. And it sucks because we can tell them, even on this podcast, we can tell people like, hey, you should stop caring what people think. But until to be honest, putting in the reps helps. Like until you have the experience of like, wow, you know, it does sting when you get rejected. There's a reason. It's because, you know, like it feels good to be successful. And if it feels good to be successful, that means that there has to be a repercussion, has to sting when you get rejected. And so just because of the duality, the nature of the existence we live in, you should just honestly take both of them with a grain of salt and be like, okay, whatever. And me and you have a weird perspective on it because we're in sales. Like we've done sales. You get rejected all the time. So you better get used to it. Like you're going to just keep having it happen over and over again. And once you release that desire to have that outcome, like if you really start to think about it and you're like, wow, even if I don't get the sale, or even if this doesn't happen, am I going to be okay? Yes. And then you just move on. You're like, okay, it's no big deal.
I hear you, man. Nailed it. So Nadabot, where do you want to see this growing? What's your ideal best case scenario? If I could tell you could have everything you want in the next 3 to 5 years, what would it be for this organization?
Great question. So my biggest value is probably freedom if I really boil it down to some different things. So with Nadabot, I guess where I would see it heading is I want to be able to provide a lot of opportunity for people to learn a skill set. Really, in my opinion, that's the most valuable is the employees that we hire as well as the employees that our company hires, or the companies that we work with hire, because the skill set of being able to do this, like I said, it changes people's lives because they're able to go out and they can figure out how to create an opportunity out of thin air, which in my opinion is the most valuable skill set. So in a weird roundabout way, I really don't care too much about necessarily like hitting a certain dollar mark or anything like that. I really care about the impact in terms of people that we change kind of their outlook on lives and their ability to create opportunities out of thin air. So I want my company to create a million opportunities out of thin air. And I want it to be kind of a butterfly effect of where a lot of other people can start to connect the dots and create opportunities out of thin air.
Love it, man. And with respect to product set, are you planning on evolving the software? Do you have any sort of backlog? Can you share that, by the way? Anything you're excited about coming up?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's nothing like too crazy about our software or what we do. We try to make everything really as simple as possible. The secret sauce of what we do is combining everything together, from teaching people how to make their storytellers really good. So our training is really good. And then the software behind it is really just a system to be able to follow up on the videos that you're sending out and, consistently, drag in new leads that are actually going to make sense to reach out to. So yeah, from that standpoint, I mean, I'm sure that it'll evolve and hopefully become better and more robust over time, especially as Notion's capabilities open up. But beyond that, I mean, really, I think where we're gonna start to see some probably big plays is where we start making, like, there's certain niches where these videos start to make a lot of sense in. So like raising capital is an example. Like my friend and I actually taught this method of doing these, personal videos to my previous team. So I ran a sales team of probably like 7 inbound guys. And then we had like anywhere from 15 to 20 outbound SDRs is what we called them back then. But what I did is I took those SDRs, and this is where the idea for Nadabot came from. We were having trouble on Facebook ads. And so I took them and I basically said, hey, look, just do personal videos. Scrap everything else you're doing. I just want to see you guys each do some videos every single day. Let's do bare minimum 5 a day. And I had one guy who went through all my trainings. He's like one of my close friends now. His name's Sam. He did 7 videos a day, Monday through Saturday, and never missed. He was the only one that was like disciplined and consistent enough, never missed. And he's had some wild opportunities come out of it. So he keeps getting pulled in all these directions because so many people want him to come make videos for them. And so he did a little bit of outreach to raise money for a fund. And it turned out like he got an investor to put like $600 million in some area and ended up going and making some ridiculous amount of money. And so there's a lot of different avenues to where this makes a lot of sense in, like the highest leverage points of what we do. And so it's probably going to evolve in some ways to be more targeted around, kind of like you said, it's like, why are you reaching out to the VP with a personal video? Well, if we can do this really, really well and reach specific types of people, that's the highest leverage activity.
Love it, man. And last question for you, Clay. This is one of my favorites. I feel like this one always hits home for someone. Um, if you were to go back in time, jump into that DeLorean and go back in time and see Clay Raterman's 18-year-old self,
Ah,
which is not that far away for you, but still, we're gonna give it a shot. What would you tell younger Clay?
I thought you were gonna ask if I would go back and change anything, and I was gonna say my ideal answer would be no. I never like my whole thing is I do not want to live with regret.
No regrets,
Um,
baby.
yeah, that's literally like, oh gosh. Okay, so what would I tell my 18-year-old self? Like in terms of advice?
Anything. And
Oh.
please don't say buy Bitcoin because that's just so cliche on this podcast.
No, I'm not even I am into crypto, but okay.
Oh, we could talk about that one for
Yeah. Let me think. I think I would, man, it'd be so hard to give myself the right piece of advice at that time. I think I would tell myself that you only have one life. It would go back to the same thing. I'd say you only have one life.
stop
Start
stressing
doing
over the
stuff.
BS, basically.
Start doing stuff. Like start having more, like something about having more experiences. I think I would tell myself you have one life and the experiences are what matter most. So go out and start having more experiences. It's a weird piece of advice, but I think the one life thing for me and just reminding myself like, hey, you're gonna die at some point, and like kind of waking myself out of the droning of just day-to-day life is probably the biggest thing that's kind of given me, still to this day, gives me a little kick in the butt.
You know where that comes from, by the way, is you mentioned your grandfather earlier. You've had that before where something's taken off. I know
Yeah.
this because I've had, my mother unfortunately passed away. My grandfather,
Wow.
seeing that is like puts it into perspective of why worry about the little BS when it's that short when these things
Yeah.
happen. So
Well,
I
I'm sorry to hear that as well. I didn't even,
I appreciate that, brother.
that's
What
crazy.
doesn't kill us makes us stronger, though, and looks like you and I went through that. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's honestly that's exactly what I would tell myself: is life is short, fail fast.
Yeah.
That's my biggest
Yeah.
thing.
And also like failures don't matter really
Yeah,
that
fail
much. Like
fast.
they're actually the most information rich data you can get. So do more of them.
Exactly. Just try everything, fail fast, and if you like it, stick with it. If not, fail fast and move on, basically.
That's
But
so
I
true.
appreciate you taking the time, brother. Really getting to know you. Super excited about your journey, and more importantly, excited about what you've built for yourself. I feel like coming out of school and saying I'm not going to get a job, and really sticking to your guns and keep making your grandfather proud. That's huge. So,
I
kudos to you.
appreciate it. Well, just so everyone knows, I did fail. I took a job at Oracle for about 1 year. I made it out in 1 year, but I did have to take a job.
Like I said, fail fast. There you
Yeah.
go.
And by the way, for entrepreneur, if there's entrepreneurs out there listening, because me and you have both been here, taking a job's not the worst thing in the world. It sometimes provides you the capital and the time you need to go build something. So don't
Not to
be as
mention the
stubborn as
skill
I
set.
was.
Not to mention the skill set. You learn from a lot of different
Yeah.
people. So
Yeah.
absolutely.
100%.
Clay, stay in touch, brother, and don't jump off yet. Want to power.
Awesome. Yeah, I got you.
Cheers.
Like if you're a small business, you should be niche down as much as you possibly can, like to the niche of the niche of the niche, and you should be reaching out just to those people.